Afternoon, all. Welcome to Garry Birtles Red, the Nottingham Forest podcast from Nottinghamshire Live. Temps here in the supply teacher role once more with Matt Davis away for his summer break, but he has left me in the company of Forest fan Greg Mitchell and European Cup winner Garry Birtles. Garry, we have to start by paying tribute to Trevor Francis. We all know him as a player, obviously, but tell us a bit about Trevor Francis, the man.
Well, I mean, Trevor's just one of the nicest people you'll ever wish to meet. Not only was a top-class player, but he was so humble. He was so quiet. He could have been really big-headed about, being the first £1 million player, but never was at all. Came with the big reputation to the club, and straight away the gaffer made him make us all a cup of tea. He played him in the A team down at Nottingham University. And we went down and watched the game before we played on the Saturday afternoon. And, as a man, I mean, we all know about, his lovely wife, Helen, who passed away, sadly, with cancer. And my wife obviously passed away a couple of years ago with pancreatic cancer. And Trev was on the phone straight away, offering his support, offering his help. And, he knows exactly what I was going through. And now, I know what exactly he went through. So, that's the kind of guy he is, and it was so appreciated. It's unbelievable.
You mentioned that camaraderie there between the group. There'll be some tears shed, no doubt, from his teammates from that era.
Without a doubt, we're a tight group. We try and get out on a Thursday. The lads are out on a Thursday. This lunchtime, so I'm sure there'll be some stories told, and they'll be raising a glass to Trevor, and rightly so. I'm down south at the moment. It's my birthday today. I'm getting older and older, and so I wish I was with the lads a little bit celebrating his life, but I'm sure they'll do a very, very good job without me, without a doubt. But it was just out of the blue as well. Such a shock. When I got the call, and we're all hoping it wasn't true. The rumours that were circulating, but unfortunately, there were. The last time we saw him was at John Robertson's 70th. It was great to see him. He was really happy. He's in good spirits, and it's just the first one of our European Cup squad that's sadly passed away.
Greg, he'll be forever immortalised by that goal in 1979, perhaps the most famous Forest goal of all time, nodding in at the backstick from John Robertson. You and I weren't even born, but it's a name that will be forever etched in Forest history.
It's without doubt the most famous goal in Forest history, and one of the most famous ones in that era's history, not just for Forest. I spoke to my dad before coming on, and I've mentioned it already, but. He was out in Munich, and that generation, what that team did and what Francis did, only signing a couple of months before. And I think that was the first European Cup game he could play in, wasn't it? So what, that transfer fee was obviously worth every penny straight away with that one goal, but it just seemed he added to such an already brilliant team, and he was just the cherry on top. So, yeah, and it just shows with all the tributes as well how special he was, just not with our club, but with so many other clubs. And just a truly sad day for Nottingham and English football, really.
I think the thing is as well, people forget the second European Cup, his impact on that. Yes, he didn't play in the final because they got injured, that horrific injury against Crystal Palace. But the quarter-final and the semi-final, he was instrumental in getting us through those games. Yeah, it's a team game, but Trevor, really stepped up to the plate, scored the 2 in Berlin, scored against Ajax, and, sadly got injured. So, he was instrumental in a lot of the things in that run going through to that final, although sadly he couldn't play.
Do you know, sorry. Looking at his sheet of teams he played for, and have I got this wrong that he actually went on loan to Detroit during playing for Forest, like in the pre-season? Is that something that many players did?
I can't remember that.
Yeah, played for Detroit Express during the 79 and 80 summer.
Garry Mills went to America as well, didn't he? He played over there. I'm trying to think who he played for, actually. You might have a good point there.
Yeah, it really surprised me. And it's Wikipedia, so I usually choose to believe it. But I wasn't sure if Cloughie had liked things like that happening.
Etched in our memories, and he'll be forever remembered by Forest fans. Sad news too, Greg, the passing of Chris Bolt-Williams, a player from a very different era, a very different period at the club. But again, he left his mark with some memorable performances, and the goal against Reading, of course, which got us back in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's one of my first memories as well. I remember standing Lower Bridgeford on the very front row, and I can just remember that full-time whistle with my dad standing on the white wall that's at the front of Bridgeford, and some of the fans going on the pitch. And for a defensive midfielder to be as effective as he was in that team, and for a few years as well. I mean, 35 goals from defensive midfield, a top scorer in I think 2000 or 2001. He's just a really quality player who, again, just hoping it wasn't true at the time, just because of the similarities between the two players playing at the same club. So I wondered whether maybe there was a mistake or a wrong rumour, but tragically not. And again, someone who's been not just remembered by Nottingham, but many, many, many other teams, because he was a special player for that era. Just really sad.
He was a really nice lad as well. You know, I didn't play with him in that era at all, but you know, I was around the club at the time. You know, and he was, you know, he's a very welcoming sort of player, and you know, always spoke. And yeah, you listen to the tributes from the lads who played with him in that era, and you know, very similar to, you know, the ones we're giving to Trevor.
Yeah, thoroughly deserved. Great fellas and great contributors to our football club. Paying our respects there to Chris Bolt-Williams and Trevor Francis. Let's turn our attention to some of the transfer business that has concluded. About 30 minutes after we came off air last week, Greg, the cogs started whirring at the City Ground, and the players were ushered in for medicals. Anthony Elanga and Ola Aina have both landed. Your thoughts on both of those signings?
Well, I said last week not to panic, and you know, it's a very different transfer window to last summer. The comments weren't too favourable with that, and then 30 minutes later they pull a couple out the bag. And yeah, again, like I said last week, not players that I knew really anything about, but they're exciting. You see on paper what they can do. Cooper clearly wants them, which is always a good sign for me. And it just seems like the start of a very much slower transfer window, but maybe a lot more calculated, which I'm quite excited about.
Is that what we're seeing, Gary? Are we seeing a more considered period of business from Forest in this window compared to the somewhat enforced madness of this time last year?
I think possibly so. I think we have to look at the what happened at the end of last season. You know, the run we had with the players we've got in that squad at the moment. I mean, yes, a few of them have left, but the ones who have left didn't really play a major part. Loddie's the only one, isn't he? I think that's finishing team has gone, but yeah, it's got to be more considered. It's got to be down to Steve, and you know, it's Elanga's the one for me. Anybody who plays for Manchester United, who signs for Manchester United, you know, got to have something about them. You don't go and play for Manchester United if you're not rated very, very highly. But it's about fulfilling the potential that they see in you. And I think he's still obviously got that to do. But I like his comments about what he said about coming to Forest. You know, he feels it's the right club to come to that will suit what he does, you know, within the group of players that we have. And when you're hearing those sort of things, that's what you want to hear as a fan. And you just hope that he can now realise the potential that he actually has, you know, because he's obviously got that. And I think Steve's the perfect person to bring that out. You know, he's so good with players, and, you know, he's so meticulous about what he does with them, and they all get on board with what he wants to do. We've seen that from that squad last season. So I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, if he can progress from, you know, being a Manchester United player to come into Forest and being superb for us.
Young in years, but very experienced. 55 appearances for Manchester United. He's a 12-cap Swedish international with 3 international goals. He's played in the Premier League. He's played in the Champions League. Greg, he seems very much a player for now and one for the future.
Yeah, and he's one that can play in a few positions, which is key for us, with what happened last year with injuries. And again, it's market value, isn't it? It's talking about financial fair play, which we're all absolute experts in, it seems, this day. But it's that future sale that you'd be looking for to help you progress even further. And he's in that Gibbs-White category Johnson Gibbs-White category where, with their youth on their side and their potential not reaching the peak yet, it should be a very coy signing, and one that I think other clubs were looking at him as well, and probably surprised we've got it done so quickly.
The other confirmed signing is Aina, attacking fullback with a long throw. It'd be a bit unfair to say he's been under the radar. He's played in Serie A. He was in the Chelsea youth ranks. He was in the Hull side on loan that beat Forest twice in a particular season. Played some games for Fulham as well. Garry, do you know much about him, and what do you hope he can add to the mix across the defensive line?
I don't know a great deal about him, but I know about our attacking fullbacks and how important they've been to us over the past few seasons. And, it's something that has worked for us. The creation on both flanks, especially the right-hand side, has been absolutely superb. And why stop trying to do something that gets you so many good results? So it's always about the Premier League. Adapting to the Premier League is one of the hardest things in football. Not because, people will say, well, it's hard to adapt to, Serie A and, the La Liga. But it's more difficult in England because of the frenetic nature of, the Premier League, the number of games you have to play. So that's the one thing that anybody who comes to play in the Premier League have got to handle. They've got to get, on board very quickly. The fitness levels, have got to be very, very high. And you know that the preparation at Forest is going to be spot on. So again, another one, you look forward to seeing them play and seeing what they offer. It's like Danilo when he came. All of a sudden, how well did he adjust to the Premier League once he got his chance? That's what you have to try and do. If you can take a lead from somebody like him and watch how he did it, and even ask the questions of, well, how difficult is this? And it's that you have to ask these questions sometimes, and players can give you a really good insight in what it takes, what you have to do. And Forest have got players like that within the squad. So learn from people who've come and done it before.
Time for our weekly check-in on the Dean Henderson saga. The jungle drums seem to suggest that Forest will get their man on loan initially with an obligation to buy. And Garry, on the showing of last season, that'd be very astute business.
Yeah, I think without a doubt. Now Navas has gone. I think we need that class keeper, and he proved that. And Brian Clough always, did things like that. The spine of the team. We've spoke about it before. Goalkeeper, centre half, centre midfield, striker. And I think to get your goalkeeper and your striker, for me, are the two big ones. And if you can do that, you've got half a chance. We've still got, a 1 year, how he finished last season. He's only going to grow in confidence coming into this season. So, I think that spine of the team is always so vitally important. Then you can build around that. And that's what, Steve Cooper did last season, especially that running at the end. It was a great spectacle to watch.
Keep your comments coming in on Facebook and YouTube. Daniel Bird asks, what do you think of the Twitter rumour that Alexis Sanchez has signed? We're not giving that too much credibility, I don't think, given the source on that one at this stage. Greg, have Forest learned their lesson in that space? Could that kind of signing be an expensive mistake following what we saw from Jesse Lingard last time around?
I expect them to do the one big stellar signing this summer. You just think that's kind of what our owner might like to do, have that big name signing in the light. So I would not be surprised to see a player like Sanchez, that coming to the end of a very, very successful career, but still got a lot left in the tank. In the bank, you'll have a bit more if he signs for us. So I wouldn't be surprised. I think that journalist that says we've signed him, kind of reputable, but it's only one journalist, isn't it? You need a few of them until things start moving. So we'll see, but I would not be surprised at all.
One far more creditable transfer rumour is Ismail Jacobs, the Monaco left back, who again fits in that attacking mould that Garry described there, with a likely ban coming for Toffolo and Lodi long since departed. You can understand, Garry, why left back would be a priority.
Yeah, in the Premier League more so than any other league, you've got to get players in the right positions. We've seen that, and you've got to build on what we did last season. You can't be complacent, and there's no way Steve will want that to happen with anybody within the squad, no matter how long you've been there or the ones coming in. And the way we play, you want to replace the people who've gone, and have that in safety in numbers sort of thing. But you're going to have to get a few more signings, obviously, because of the people who have gone already. We've lost a number of players. Sam Surridge has just gone. Shelby's gone, hasn't he? I think has he gone now?
Not yet. No, not yet.
Yeah, but I thought he was one who was departing. But yeah, there are going to be quite a few people leaving the club, as we know, as happens at every club, and the replacements are vitally important. And you like I say, after last season's heroics in staying up, you have to build on that. No matter how minute it is, the building bricks, you have to do that, because you'll stagnate otherwise, and there's no way Steve will want that to happen.
Greg, Ismail Jacobs is German-born, played for them to 21s, but represents Senegal in international football. Can you see Forest struggling during the African Cup of Nations window if we are to continue to amass more African players in the ranks?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things with that it's only really going to affect us if some of these teams go further into the competition, because there is a bit of a winter break this winter, isn't there? So I'm sure it's going to affect us, but with the amount of top African players in the Premier League at the minute, it's going to affect pretty much every team. So I'd much rather sign, not even thinking about that, because the chances are it might be one game, it might be 2 games, but we'll have 30, 40 games of a top quality player. So I wouldn't be thinking too much.
Let's talk about Ibrahim Sangare. So he's the one that Forest would have to break the bank to secure a £32 million release clause for the central defensive midfielder. Can Forest get to that level, Garry? We'll talk about Brennan Johnson a little bit later on. Or do they need to work down their list of targets? Other names mentioned for that role, including Tyler Adams at Leeds, Wilfred Ndidi at Leicester. Would you like to see Forest secure another holding midfielder? And if so, should we be looking to splash 30 million quid on a single player?
That's a $64 million question in itself, isn't it? Defensive midfield players, as we've seen, are so important in the modern game. But I think the back end of last season, we saw how impressive we were. Not really with massive defensive midfield. Within the team at that particular point. Freuler was left out towards the end. Mangala came, is in there, and we looked very, very threatening. To be fair, I mean, we conceded those against Southampton, but won the game. It's a difficult one to say. I mean, the purse strings are going to have to be very closely watched, and it'd be interesting to see what Steve targets as the most important positions he needs to strengthen. I as an ex-striker, I always say you need somebody else up there. If one you gets injured again, then it could be a struggle. Then pressure. If Brennan stays, goes back onto him a little bit. I thought he handled that really well last season. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very important few weeks now, because we're not that far off, and there might be last minute signings. You always have a list, I think, as a manager, your A list, your B list, and hopefully not a C list of players you want to come in. So it's gone over with a fine tooth comb, and no stone is left unturned, and I'm sure they've got the ones they want in their mind right up there high on the list, and just be very interesting to see how it goes and who we bring in now.
Greg, same question to you. Break the bank for Sangare, or be a bit more considered with Adams or Ndidi?
It depends. I mean, someone in the comments just said about, would you rather sign him or if it means losing the likes of Brennan Johnson? And that's kind of what worries me, that if we break the bank and then get, like Gareth says, Sanchez as well, it's weighing it up for me. I'd always have a loyalty to Brennan Johnson and wanting to keep him. And you do get the feeling that if we're going to break the bank, something may well have to give. You hope not this season. You hope it might have to be next season. So it's a real flip of a coin for me. I wouldn't like to see Brennan Johnson go under any circumstance this summer.
Yeah, I don't think he can go. I think he's still got a lot to learn, and I think the learning curve could be at Forest. Why go somewhere else when you know exactly how good you are at that particular football club? I mean, last season he was different class for me. You know, in some quarters he got a little bit stick, which surprised me. He's a young lad. He was learning, and he learned very quickly. And, you know, again, it's progression. And I think the progression has to be with Nottingham Forest, unless, you know, they have to sell him for, you know, the reasons we've all spoke about, the fair play thing, and, you know, get that into order. But I would never sacrifice him for, you know, a defensive midfield player, you know, that sort of money. I just think he's vital to what we do. He takes the pressure off a little bit of a 1 year and vice versa. But when you're that one player who's expected to do it all, which he was for quite a while, and, you know, he did it with great aplomb for me, I think you've got to hang on to him without a doubt.
Forest clearly do have an FFP challenge. We've seen the structuring of the Dean Henderson conversation. There was a very well-briefed article in the Telegraph, which John Percy wrote, suggesting that the asking price for Brennan Johnson is £50 million. Can Forest resist an offer of that level? For better or for worse, we've had to be a selling club in recent times. You've got this incredibly saleable asset. Does he have a price? Is it 50 million? And Greg, have we seen that coded through that article in the Telegraph? Is that the number at which Forest will be forced to deal?
Every single player for every single club has a price. You know, you look at the craziness that's going on with Mbappe at the minute for 1 year left of his contract. But for me, we don't have to sell him. You know, we're just not in the position at this moment in time, 1 year into our Premier League run, that we don't sell the player that's arguably one of the most influential. So, we shouldn't have to sell him. I'm sure we don't have to sell him. Weighing up for the people that know a lot more than we do is what you can do with the money if we do sell him. But, you know, the talk is that it wouldn't really matter with financial fair play this year. It's all about next summer. So you'd hope if he has another successful year for us after going through every single rank in the youth setup, being so influential for us, proving himself out on loan at clubs when we weren't ready to use him, and then, you know, bringing him back and doing what he did for us. I think we deserve another year out of him. I hope his advisors and, you know, his management team are saying that he could develop even further with us. And then next summer, I don't think anyone would begrudge him if he's getting the 50, 60, you know, £70 million move to a top six side. Because to be honest, you hear in Brentford and, you know, West Ham or what have you, Villa have got their man now. It's not exactly, you know, the big jump, is it? It's not exactly Collymore to Liverpool or anything like that. That's what you'd be expecting Brennan Johnson to go for. And I just think it'd be a mistake for him to just leave for an average Premier League side.
I think and hope that's what Steve Cooper will be telling Brennan Johnson now. You're a player of immense potential. You've got great numbers at every level you've played at, but why jump to Brentford now when in a year's time there might be an opportunity to play for a side who are perhaps competing more regularly in European competition? Would that change the conversation for you, Garry, if this was a Spurs and Arsenal? Spurs probably the bad example there. If this was an Arsenal, a Man United, a Newcastle in a year's time, at that point, would you be supportive of him fulfilling that potential?
So I haven't got a problem. Everybody in football or whatever job they do want to achieve the highest possible, you know, apex they can in any job they do. You know, a film star wants to go and, you know, make a $100 million movie or whatever. Footballers want to play for England or their respective countries. You know, everybody wants to reach the highest point they possibly can in their given, you know, profession. And, you know, football is one of those. And you couldn't blame anybody for doing that. But I just think Brennan has got another year where he can learn so much because he's in the Welsh squad as well. Let's not forget that. And when he's come on, we've seen the potential he showed, international level. I just think at least one more year with us would be massively beneficial for him, because he knows exactly what's expected of him. He could go somewhere else and be sat on his backside. If he goes to a bigger team, I think he's worth more than 50 million, to be quite honest. When you look at the what's going on around the transfer market, he is potential plus. He's pace, he finishes well, he's learning to get his head up when in the final third and pick people out, and that all-round game is worth a lot more than they're saying he's worth for me. But I still think one more year at least with us would be so beneficial for him, and you can learn so much for. You're never too old to learn. I always found that when I played. I mean, I went to Manchester United, remember, at a similar sort of age. I'm trying to think what age I was. 1980, I went there, and it seemed the right move, but it probably wasn't at that particular point. I thought I was just going to go and achieve, again at Manchester United, what I'd achieved at Forest, be successful. It didn't quite happen, and that can happen. You can have that downward trend a little bit, and players have found that in the past. We've seen that with the players. Don't go and do it too quickly. Just, bide your time. He's still a young man. He's got a lot of football left in him. His pace isn't going to diminish for, years to come yet. And he's just getting brighter. He's getting more intelligent, in the right areas. And he's learning the game very quickly, which you have to at the Premier League. So, just stay there. I hope his dad tells him exactly the same, because he is definitely one for the future. I look forward to seeing him in a Wales shirt, on a regular basis, because I think he deserves that because of what he's achieved in the game so far. He's only been in it, for a couple of seasons at the high level, and you have to just admire the way he's learning his trade, as Brian Clough used to say. That's what you have to do, and he's doing that really, really well.
Another player we should thank for their services, Sam Surridge. He's joined Nashville in MLS. Greg, he did more than he ever promised to do during his time at Forest. Bench warmer last year, but so important in that promotion campaign.
Yeah, and it was nice to see Forest give him such a heartfelt send-off as well. I think it's really appreciated what he'd done for us. A very short spell and not much game time last year, but he was one of those players last year that as soon as he was called upon, he was ready to go. Clearly invested and involved on the side of the pitch, just like some of the others that weren't getting their chance, and really helped towards that big squad mentality that we did so well off, really. And I'm surprised he's gone to America. It does seem like an exciting move for him, though. It's a
he's gone for the music. He's not gone for the football. He's gone for the music.
Oh, good on him then. But yeah, lovely shirt as well. Really like that. But no, good luck to him. And he's still young, so he could be, they have these MLS All-Stars, and he could easily be one of the top players. And he's going to be playing against the likes of Messi and stuff. So, yeah, good luck to him. I really enjoy. I'm going to look forward to seeing where he goes now, how he gets on.
I just love Sam Surridge for, the way he went about things. When he came on and when he played, he was so honest. You ran in the channels, he was always available. He'd win the ball in the air. He scored some fabulous goals. He was a great finisher. When you consider some of the goals that we saw him score, I'm really sad to see him go, because he was a genuinely nice lad as well. He always had a word when he saw you, and he just gave so much to that squad. And at that age, I'm like you, so surprised he's gone over there. But if you're playing against Lionel Messi, who started quite well, I believe, over there, he's a couple of goals, assists, and things have started to go well for David Beckham's club. But yeah, I think he's got more to offer than going to America. But it's always an individual's decision, and I hope he benefits from it. I hope he learns from it. I'd love to see him come back into this country and play over here again.
Gary, Forest are a few more to ease out, the likes of Emmanuel Dennis, John Joe Shelby, Steve Cook, Harry Arter. Are there any more that you'd add to that list of players that now need to move on?
It's always a difficult one to say which ones you want to release. Freuler, will he stay if he's not going to be playing in the team? Swiss international. Has he got a part to play still? We don't know with what happened at the end of last season. I think you've got to retain, a lot of that squad, because We saw how important it was to have numbers. People gave us a lot of stick for signing a lot of players, but the number of injuries we got, towards the mid part and towards the end of the season, with people coming in and doing jobs, it just shows you how important it is to have that, more expansive squad. Because if you don't, you're relying on a smaller number, and if that smaller number, few of those get injured, you're in trouble. So the balance has got to be got right. The wage bill has got to be right. And look, I mean, Steve Cooper knows inside out what it takes to run a football club as a manager, and who he wants to stay, who he doesn't. And that's the hardest job for a manager, getting rid of players. You're saying, well, I'm sorry, you don't fit into my plans, and he'll know that. He's very good at what he does. He's a very good man manager, and you have to accept that as a player, however hard it is. You don't want to leave a club or whatever. If it's your time, it's your time. If it isn't and the manager gets it wrong, well, then you prove him wrong. But it's never easy getting that balance right. But I think everybody at the club, he's got great backroom staff. He's got great people behind the scenes who are a help on a daily basis. So it's not just about him. And there's a lot of people who are involved in the football club, any football club, who do a magnificent job behind the scenes. And that's exactly what's happening at Forest at the moment for me. They've got the right people in the right places, and it's about progression, and that's what they keep trying to do. They want to keep in that Premier League. They want to improve, and I'm sure they can.
Greg, some to ease out permanently, others that require the incubation of further game time on loan. Is Brandon Aguilera the best example of that, of a player that now needs to go out, get some game time, but could ultimately live with this level when he does reach maturity?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting tonight, isn't it, to see if he plays over at Burton against Leeds, because he has been a player that's had a little bit more game time. Maybe it's just due to the situation and not having a star players back yet, but he's a name that keeps popping up now. Alex Myton's had some game time. I imagine the time has come now whether he gets a long-term loan or looks elsewhere, because just where we are now, he's not going to get much game time. But yeah, there's plenty of players that you want to see move on now for to better their career, but also if it is in the loan market, to help them progress with us, because we've seen it plenty of times how the loan market really does benefit us in the recent years.
I think the one who's gone a bit quiet on us is Scarpa, really. When he first came, I saw him in Valencia, and he looked a player. Even that one game he played over there, but we all thought he was going to be the one to come through rather than Danilo, and it's been the other way around. But I still think he's got something to offer the club, and I don't know where he is in terms of fitness or pecking order, but he certainly looked as if he got a huge potential.
What do we need to see in this friendly tonight? Obviously, no love lost at times between Forest and Leeds. Will this be more of a competitive friendly, Greg, or are we going to get somewhere nearer to an 11 that could compete at Premier League level, or are you expecting plenty of rotation?
There'll be plenty of rotation, but this is the first, I think, proper test of the start of the, couple of weeks before the start of the season now. Any 3 pre-season games left, we're going to really have to start seeing our shape, and the fitness will be a little bit better again tonight. But also Leeds, they're not going to be... they're going to be a tough challenge, aren't they? Because they're still a Premier League outfit that finished very close to us. So it should be an even match. And I'm sure they've got a right bee in the bonnet to beat us and show us that, maybe it shouldn't have been them. But it'll be an interesting one tonight. And like I always say with friendlies, it's just about not picking up injuries.
Before we get some final thoughts from our 2 guests, I should wish Garry a very happy birthday. Any birthday plans, Mr. Birtles?
Yeah, just a little bit of tapas later, but when you start getting to my age, you care less about birthdays. I've had some lovely messages from a lot of people today, which has been really nice. So just get on with your life, and I just think of what's happened to Trevor, and you just think, well, there for the grace of God, and you've just got to go out and enjoy your life, and just hope that you carry on, and you just keep watching Forest and keep watching the progress there. That's what it's all about. I'm still 28 in my head. That'll never change. And I don't apologise for that. I'll still keep wearing the shirts I wear, even though the stick Steve Cooper gives me some right stick, and Alan Tate. But you take it on board. It's just a good crack, and just enjoy life. That's all you can do.
Today's shirt, for those of us watching on YouTube, is an absolute beauty. It's almost clashing with his wallpaper. But yeah, one of Ted Baker's finest there, no doubt. Greg, how old do you feel in your head? And what are your final thoughts for the
day? My final thoughts for the day. God, I've just woke up off night, so I'm feeling very old and groggy. But my final thoughts, I'm thinking about how, we talk about Brennan Johnson and how this time last year he'd never really played with the likes of Gibbs White. He'd probably never even heard of Danilo, and how much stronger we're going to be having a pre-season together with a squad that's settled. It's going to be such a different start to the season for me. So I'm really excited about that. And I love all the little videos Forest are putting out as well, really showing the camaraderie. And you get to think that all footballers are good golfers. And I think after watching Nico Williams' golf swing, that's a bit of a myth, unfortunately. But it's great that they're putting out all this stuff and just showing the togetherness of the team.
Can I just say something about pre-season games? The sole thing about pre-season for a player is fitness. Getting your fitness levels up to what's required for that first game of the season. Always has been, always will be. Results, for me, doesn't matter. It's about getting that game time, getting your body accustomed to what's going to happen to it. And could I just say something else? Have we done the podcast at this time because of the Ashes?
During the lunch break.
It's lunch at the moment, so I thought there was a mysterious thing going on behind why we did it at this time. I'm sure, because you're involved, that it might be that.
Well, as you should know, Gary, rather than watching England v Australia, I'm at Trent Bridge watching Nottinghamshire versus Kent.
Watching 0.4 down, is it? They were when the last time I saw Kent.
Exactly right. Lots of work to be done and a few grey clouds over Nottingham. Fellas, thank you so much for joining us, and particularly for your tribute to Trevor at the top of the programme. Those of you that have joined us late, please do go back and rewatch on YouTube and Facebook and all of your podcast platforms. Matt Davis will be back next week, and hope you can join us too.